Good afternoon, everyone. This is Audrey Rousseau. That was just a little intro in honor of Van Halen. Life is short, and we want to make sure that we add as much music as possible to our lives and to have a moment in honoring Van Halen. So,
come on, let's go.
Here we are. This is very thrilled today. I'm Audrey. I run the Tech Council. Jonathan Kirsting is with us. He's Vice President of all things media and obviously all things music. But he is, by the way, he's been with the Tech Council 23 years. So he knows a lot about what's happening here. And we're pretty stoked about having today's guest, because today's guest is someone that we've all known for a long time, and we've watched him grow. We've cheered him on. We've watched him form into adulthood, and he's going to talk about Rivers Agile. But before we go there, I want to just tell everyone that I want to give a shout out to Huntington Bank. Huntington Bank has been with us along the journey, and if you don't know them, you really should. They have a lot of expertise in helping small companies. They've been the anchor for many companies as we've gone through the pandemic, and they're there for the long haul. Plus, they believe in all experiments that we do, and they can't be better partners. So we're at 138 sessions. It's another beautiful day in Pittsburgh, and just grab your lunch and join us as we talk to Ben Wilson, who's the founder of Rivers Agile. We've muted your microphones and we've allowed for a chat. And what we're gonna have is a really great chat with Ben. So Ben Wilson, he's CEO of the aptly named company called Rivers Agile. We're going to spend some time exploring some interesting pivots that Rivers Agile has made during the pandemic and even before and after, because that's what he's been doing. He's been adapting to his own market and been rapidly growing. So we're very excited. He's a startup. He's vibrant and he contributes a lot to the community as well. So if you know that if you're a startup and contribute to the community, sometimes you just don't have enough time, but Ben seems to find a way to do that. So I want to welcome Ben. And before we talk about Rivers Agile, first, I want to know how you're doing. And second, I want to know what's your journey. Tell us a little bit about your journey, Ben, and the kinds of things that you're involved in the community.
Oh, sure. Audrey, thanks for having me. Thanks to the Tech Council for your continued leadership and programming throughout this completely upside down year. I don't think any of our worlds have remained unchanged at this point. So my journey is, well, it's pretty interesting. So I pretty much have been a technologist since I graduated college from the University of Pittsburgh. So I cut my teeth really in the startup world. I was a participant in the .com success and bubble pop, which was fun. I at a very early age, was able to obtain opportunities career-wise that I think maybe more traditionally in a different environment would not have been possible. I was a manager at Print Cafe, I think at the age of 25 or something like that. And so that is good and bad. I also spent my 20s in a cubicle. But I think if you recognize opportunity at a young age in your career, you will receive some fruits from that labor later on. And so, I spent about 6 or 7 years at Print Cafe. It was a great opportunity for me. I had a gentleman named Sean take a chance on me and really give me the most junior QA job possible. And I took the opportunity and really just immersed myself in the world of quality assurance and eventually sharpened that skill set where over a couple of different teams was able to build enough of a different mindset and skill set for QA that I was able to take that show on the road with Rivers Agile. But that didn't come without, probably 10 years of work in the industry and seeing successes and failures of startups. It helped shape me to who I am today. Audrey, you mentioned that we are a startup. We are definitely a 12-year-old startup, which is funny to say, but we do as an organization pivot based upon market trends, based upon opportunities, frankly, and based upon things that we tried and didn't work, right? And so we have to constantly be grooming the organization to fit what the market needs or what the region needs, right? And so I know we'll get into, how we're having regional impact a little bit later on. but that's my journey. I'm a University of Pittsburgh graduate. I serve on a board at the University of Pittsburgh today as an advisor. I also went to Robert Morris for my master's degree. So I am Pittsburgh bred for sure. I'm a local person that has grown to the point in his career that we understand what our role is at Rivers, and it's not just making software. It is having, especially this year, it is helping. It is providing impact to organizations that just need a little bit of guidance, right? It is providing opportunities for startups that this year they wouldn't have a prayer of getting that chance without someone thinking a little bit differently.
Well, so let's talk about Rivers Agile, talk about the work, because back in the day, you really were very committed to helping a lot of entrepreneurs and really
Absolutely.
help them with their nascent ideas. But talk about Rivers Agile. What is it that is your core? And that
so our core, we've evolved over the years. Our core was something very unique, but it also forced us to be a little bit boutique in that we offered software quality assurance consulting. That was it, right? And what we offered with that service was a little more predictability with the software development lifecycle. A sounding board for the estimates that you're working with, that you're using to promise your customer base, or maybe a new customer that signs, that says, we'll sign, but you have to add these 3 pieces of functionality by, Q1 of next year. Well, our brand and our methodology of quality assurance helps companies really make that happen. Okay. And so what we were able to do at a very early stage, and this is, when we're still working out of my basement, was to prove to large organizations that software and software planned releases can be a little bit more predictable and go out with less risk, less bugs, and also stay a little more true to the requirements itself, right? And back then, in the 2008, 2009 era, people weren't thinking about quality assurance in that way, right? They were thinking of it as more of a reactive role than a proactive role, right? So essentially the bones of the company is an elevated role and presence of quality assurance impacting the business as a whole, right? Because QA, the prospect of quality, is not just testing, it is applying quality throughout the organization.
Mm-hmm. And so what does that mean? So so give us some examples, like a use case of how you've worked with companies and embedded your expertise in QA, because you've actually also attracted people that work for you now that have deep roots in quality assurance.
It's true. It's a natural movement and progression in your career for a true quality assurance professional to try to apply those skill sets in the consultative manner that we've put together. So some applications there. So when you think about, an easy way to start a conversation with a fellow technologist would be, how did your last release go? And here's the aha moment. Sometimes it doesn't go very well, and there's a problem, and there's a story behind that, right? And so, a lot of times when you do a retrospective and you think about, well, how did this go wrong? Sometimes the answer is that functionality should have never been developed because it wasn't properly spec'd out with acceptance criteria and certain, anticipations from the product owner / visionary, whomever is talking to the buyer, needs to make sure that what they requested is actually being implemented. And a lot of times, through just moving fast and trying to deliver, some steps are skipped. And so we apply our methodology to provide some gating to say, well, if there's no acceptance criteria, that surely should not be in the sprint, right? Because now we're wasting time. Because now we're imagining what the vision of this is from the 1 or 2 line sentence of a requirement, and then you have to do rework, or it goes out and it doesn't meet the needs of the client. So that's one example. Another one would be, taking an unbiased lens through quality assurance to understand, are we really on track to meet that deadline? A lot of times I meet with organizations who do estimating sans the quality assurance effort, and then they wonder why they're late. That's an easy thing to change, but it does require a sort of top-down push to do so, to apply those, really best practices at this point. We didn't invent that. We just apply it and we enforce it, right? And so, helping organizations understand what their true current state is versus what their anticipated or even documented state is, right? And oftentimes they don't realize they're late, and it could be even 6 months out from the deadline, right? So we're able to sort of look through a different lens and really define the true current state.
But what's really fascinating to me, having watched you over this dozen years, is that you've actually worked with companies that you're just working with the visionary, someone who's actually has an idea, and they're like they're really, I mean, they're just still, doing their visioning.
Well, I'll be honest with you. That is where a lot of my passion lies. I love to invent and innovate, and so under normal circumstances, pre-COVID, I would spend probably half of my week on somebody else's whiteboard, trying to solve problems or trying to innovate. And honestly, that is a fantastic way to spend your week. I love it. I thrive on it. It really drives me, and that's also why I have focused part of the company to remain in that sector of startups and entrepreneurs, because that's my passion. And then also, we know that we're having a regional impact. We as residents of Pittsburgh want to continue this path forward of Pittsburgh being this, innovation hub, right? And to be candid, this year of all years is not the year to sit back. This is the year to push forward, right? Because there are others that are certainly sitting back and just, watching, right? And not leading. And I think that's an opportunity for us.
Yeah, and so you've had your fingerprint in quite a few, regional startups, which is really exciting, quite a few. And then you get into this QA kind of world, and now you start to work with larger companies, right?
It's true. Most of the work we get, believe it or not, is referral based. We don't have a large sales team, out there sort of pounding the pavement, as might be a little more tradition. What is more likely the case is that somebody is colleagues with maybe a startup or a other product company that we work with that sees the body of work that we put together. Rivers pushes out, between 6 and 12 new pieces of technology every year through our clients, none of which you can buy from us or anything like that. But because we are that company, others who are naturally in that space or want to be in that space naturally come over and start up a conversation with us. And we might talk for 4 months before any reasonable, engineering activity occurs, because it's very important to me. We are a service-based vendor, right? It's very important to me that we build the right thing the first time. And if I have a feeling that we are building the wrong thing, that's when Rivers will say, I don't think right now is the time. Let's continue to groom this. We're happy to do so. But if this is the plan, we don't think it's a great plan moving forward because of a variety of different reasons, right?
And so have you found that there's like a particular market sector that you have gravitated towards, or does that matter, or have you seen any trends?
Yes, and you could also apply that to the natural history of rivers, right? In 2015, 2016, we were so heavily into oil and gas and energy. That was a mainstay for us, because that is an industry that scientifically has done wonders, but from a software perspective and a information workflow perspective, there's still a little bit behind the times. Now, when you have market downturns, such as oil and gas does tend to have in cycles, you naturally pivot. So then we found ourselves so heavily embedded into healthcare, right? Now, part of that is the region that we live in. Some of that is also just general market trending. But today, we see a ton of activity, especially this year, in fintech and logistics for sure. If you're in the business of logistics this year, you may have had a really good year. Not everybody, but it's just something we're seeing. We're seeing a resurgence in e-com, which it's kind of funny to say that, but we are seeing it. We're seeing traditional companies that might have had e-com, but it was never as profitable as their brick and mortar, whatever it is they're selling. And so now they've had to pivot, right? And so we do see these trends, every 18, 24 months. It just sort of depends on what's going on in the world. But we as a company tend to pivot because we want to continue our march forward.
And so you're now located on the north side. Is everyone back at work, or how are you operating?
No. I sent everybody to work from home in the middle of March. And the week after, we moved into our new office. So, wonderful timing. It is wonderful and ready for use. We are lightly using it right now. We are at this point looking at what parts of our work week or sprint are best served in person. What are those conversations where to me, it's pretty hard to argue that any kind of whiteboarding software is good enough and supplemental for a real tactile whiteboard, right? So when we're talking about sprint planning and we're talking about demos and retrospectives, things that require that human element, that's where we're going to see ourselves in the office for that period of time. But we will remain in a primarily work from home status for the foreseeable future right now. What my team has shown me is that traditional be in the office early, stay late, that model doesn't need to be. It really doesn't. And as a matter of fact, when you start removing things like drive time and the stress between switching from work mode to home mode and things like that, we've seen productivity increase, which is amazing. And maybe I wouldn't have predicted that in March because we didn't have this many months of data to look at, right?
Well, is there any technology that you think could help with collaboration? Like I miss my white wall. So anyone who knows us knows that Jonathan spent time painting, some walls that are white and we can all write on. I miss that. I miss the bumping into and having those collisions and having one another riff off of it. Is there any technology that is out there? Someone's asking which
it's probably coming, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, he said.
Let us know because we need it bad.
Yeah, we need it.
Why don't we just make it?
Let's make it even better yet and make some money on it too.
Well, I see Greg Chabra is asking that. He said, which online tools have you found surprisingly or unexpectedly useful? That was essentially my question because I haven't been able to find it.
None would be my answer.
Okay, so everyone who wants to build it with us, please reach out to Ben and Jonathan and Brian Kennedy, and we'll start a company.
I can't think of a better outcome of this conversation than that.
Right? I mean, it's impossible. I almost bought an iPad thinking that there was a tool in there. And then as I started to look, I thought, this is just a tool for me, just my own drawings. It's not going to help me work with Jonathan.
I can't see her drawings from her iPad. It's no
right.
fun.
I'm just not. So talk to us about this Phi Crowd. What is Phi Crowd? F-I Crowd.
So Phi Crowd is a really interesting company. They're an example of someone that we spoke with and collaborated with for months before we did any real type of engineering, because we don't make sure that we were building the right thing with them. And sometimes that just ends in a number of planning and brainstorming kind of conversations to make sure that we feel like we have a good MVP in mind. And what came out of that is a white labeled crowdfunding platform that allows, you may or may not realize this, but regional banks and credit unions, that part of their charge is to have regional impact, okay? That sounds good and you can budget around that, but if you don't have a tool that enables it, it's gonna be tough to do, okay? So Phi Crowd answers that call. And I think during a pandemic year when most regions are hurting and looking for alternative sources of funding, this is a pretty good time to launch. And the MVP is just about complete, and I see lots of success in their future. The leadership team is very strong. When I'm looking at any type of investment for the firm or individually, I want to see leaders that have some wins on the board, not ones that have never run a business before or invested in technology, things like that. So that makes the playing field a little bit different when you have a strong leadership team such as Phi Crowd has.
So how do you use your civic muscle? What have you done? Have you been involved in boards? I think I saw you on one board. How do you give back? So,
and I may not have predicted that this is the way that we've gone, but here I am, 12 years into Rivers Agile, and we've worked with a number of different businesses, some as clients and some just to help, right? I do find myself on a couple of different boards. So I'm on the Pittsburgh Venture Capital Association board as well. And part of that charge is to help organizations who are thinking about launching, who are thinking about introducing something to help others, or introduce a technology that's going to make money. And we talk to all of them, to be honest with you. I spend a fair amount of time working with them. So I serve as a coach for the upcoming Pittsburgh Venture Connection, right? And this is not a client, this is not a chargeable consultative anything. This is, let me help you with your pitch deck because I want you to get funded. I want you to exist here in the Pittsburgh marketplace so that we can continue our path forward together as this center of innovation. I also serve as an advisor for the University of Pittsburgh, where they've put together a quantitative economics master's program that merges economics with big data. And I can't wait for the first cohort to graduate because they're going to be, I say this, they're going to be dangerous, but in a great way. I think we're building leaders in that program. I'm actually speaking to them next week, and I'm very, very excited to do so, to share some insight, both career-wise, but also what they can do with their new talents, right? Because what I see, especially with tech leadership, is you either have one or the other, right? You're a great technologist, but you don't understand the business ramifications potentially of decisions of how you're leading your company or of opportunities, both won or lost. And so I do see that program growing for sure. I think there's about 14 students in that cohort right now. And I'm sure once they get their legs about them, that program's going to grow. So I'm very excited. It always feels good to go back to your alma mater and do anything positive,
And so what's the name of that program again?
Quantitative economics. It's a master's degree. It's new, it's exciting. It's built, part of the curriculum is built by technology leaders here in Pittsburgh. And so, as employers, they ask, well, what would you find valuable? And that's how part of the curriculum came to be. So I'm very excited about the outcomes for that.
That's really cool. And hopefully they have humanities and ethics built into their curriculum.
Of course.
As well. So that's exciting. So are you hiring?
We are now hiring again. I will tell you that, in the early summer, we were not. We were watching to see what would happen, and we were finding ways to adapt to the new world and things like that. But we are hiring again, and that is a bellwether to how Rivers is doing, right? We have multiple positions open. We are seeing a massive resurgence in quality assurance. And I think that comes with a little bit more of an eye on risk mitigation, right? If you invest more in quality, your risk goes down. That's pretty easy. And so what I'm seeing is there are a lot of projects that were slowly progressing. And now companies are saying, okay, let's go again, but you can't get it wrong. You can't have a bad release. You have one shot at this essentially. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty interesting to see. So that again is how we're adapting. We started with QA, but we, back in 2014, we really changed to when we added software engineering as a service, right? That, as nobody will be surprised it's on this call, ended up being a pretty big launch pad for us, right? And it really changed the shape of the organization. But it's so interesting to see, as we walk through this crazy year, to see, how businesses are adapting, what's trending, what's not, and how people are changing their approach to business. I will tell you that most business conversations that I have today are a lot less small talk and a lot more, let's try to solve this problem, right?
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true. You think we've lost the art of small talk?
It'll come back.
It'll come back. Well, I got to tell you that, we joked about 12 years ago and the vision that you had working out of, I think, Canonsburg, mm-hmm. and the fact that you were, you even had like hard copies of papers. I remember handing out,
so old school,
telling people about what you were doing. And even then I thought, well, that's sort of cute, but we got to help Ben, right? Jonathan, we got to help Ben. And then immediately you got involved in a lot of startups and mm-hmm. just really helping them go through their journey in a way that they couldn't do themselves. So if people want to think about reaching out to Rivers Agile, what kinds of problems might they be solving?
What kind of questions or what kind of problems might the entrepreneurs be solving?
Right.
Well, so I'll tell you what our focus on is on artificial intelligence, fintech, machine learning. That's what gets us excited. We know that there's plenty of room for innovation in those areas applied to many different business problems, right? And we intend to stay in those areas, and we are finding there's plenty of people that are wanting to deliver something. Machine learning as applied to X, right? All of those problems haven't been solved yet. AI and machine learning are not new topics anymore, right? However, we have not even remotely applied those great technologies to all of the problems we need to solve today. So,
like virtual whiteboards.
Virtual
virtual
whiteboard.
whiteboards.
Anyone?
Let's set up a meeting at the Tech Council and have a brainstorming session. I think it'd be amazing.
I'm in. Let's go.
There has to be a solution. So we've put your website out there. You're actually hiring, but what's more important is you are actually working to help build tomorrow for Pittsburgh.
We are, and you know, we fought our way into that circle, and now that we have a role there, it's our responsibility to continue that path forward and to help enable more innovation, which is why the workshop exists, which is why the North Shore office is dedicated to the workshop, right? We provide, you know, we now invest in our own clients at this point, right? And we do that for a number of reasons. One, because it's tough to get to point A, right? So if we can help, even by diverting some of our revenue into the funding round of that entrepreneur's startup, and it makes it get the MVP out, then we've done our job, right? But we also, again, going back to my passion for startups and entrepreneurs, we will always have a presence in that marketplace. But today more than ever, it's tough. You know, venture capital has seen a really interesting cycle here over Q2 and Q3 of this year. I mean, there was no funding to be had for the most part. And especially if you're not a seasoned or a serial entrepreneur that has received funding in the past, it's even harder. You may have the best idea in the world, something that the world or this region or somewhere in the middle really needs. But if all you have is a good idea and not a lot of background of successes in the past, it's going to be even harder. So that's okay for us because we have our own vetting process, right? And we also help on the business side. We can help supplement where the gaps are. Typically, including myself at one point, you don't have all of those skills, right? You're a great technologist, but you don't know the business, or the reverse, right? And so we help do that. And our goal is to get you into a refundable state, right? Get your business out there, get it working, get it to the point where people are chasing you. That is very, very much of interest to us.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us today, Ben. Good seeing you. I see Nancy Kukovich is saying she's assuming that we're using the Zoom whiteboard. Not great, but a start. Yeah, thank you, Nancy. We still are looking for something a little bit better, but appreciate that shout out. Thank you, Ben, for being with us. And anyone want to know about Rivers Agile, we put their information in. And tomorrow, Jonathan, who do we have?
We have the one and only Deb Acklin from WQED
Oh,
Media.
yes.
So much fun to hang out. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
She won a ton of Emmys last week.
Last time I heard, she's got quite the closet full, so very cool.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. Have a safe day. Thank you, Ben. And be safe. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.